The first sheet is the irrigation plan, and we have some low precipitation rate spray heads on the ground level, and the rest of the irrigation is drip.
Where's your backflow preventer?
Seriously?
Seriously? Sorry, I need to make sure that I understand that it's going to be screened.
Oh, screen the backflow preventer.
Yeah, backflow preventer is this symbol here, the double X, it looks like.
So it's probably on the street. It's wherever, near the point of connection. There's the big, there's POC, point of connection is there. Is this symbol?
There it is, got it. Okay, I understand where it is.
Against the building.
Continue.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
And then the details.
Okay, wonderful. Very nice looking.
And then the planting plan. We're doing stormwater management on site, so these areas are actually native species that can take the seasonal inundation. So there's a small willow called sometimes dune willow, which is silvery. It's really pretty. So it's also attractive as well as cleaning stormwater. Then we had mentioned earlier this idea of succulent gardens that sort of looked underwater, and as we developed it, it's now the octopus's garden, and we're using octopus agaves, which are not spiny in this corner and also in this area. On the lowest level, we have a sage garden. This is all a no-mow turf, which can take a lot of shade. Then the next level up, we have what we have been calling the elfin garden, which are small-growing chaparral species. And up on the upper level, we have a landscape that includes some edible plants. And then along the train station, we actually have the native rose because we were asked to provide something that was a little bit spiny to inhibit climbing. So that's
yeah, with all due respect, I understand what you're doing. I have no exceptions to it. So your backflow preventer is certainly screened.
Okay.
If we could just look at the details for the rail fence.
Okay. You know, the way that I interpreted, I did read the minutes, and it said that it was accepted. And so I can come back with that, but I didn't prepare today because the way I read the minutes is that you said you accepted it and that it would be the same as what you had done previously.
Okay, so we just need to see that detail, and I think staff can probably review that detail. Is that correct, Ms. Gantz? Compare the detail of the rail fence with the previously approved detail for the rail. Yes.
That might be part of the architect's responsibility, actually.
Good.
The only thing I don't see on the plans is we had requested that the line of the fence as it approaches the signal has been cut back.
Okay.
Make a motion for approval with that condition.
Why don't I just mark it on the plan there?
May I ask a question?
Yes, Commissioner Drury.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, and why the fence, since you have a curved
linear outline. The whole building has these lovely curves on the flat plan. Why not just curve the fence around that signals building also and sort of isolate it a little bit?
I could probably answer that for you because they're following the property line to sort of maximize the landscaping that they get here. If they were to curve it, they would have to cross the property line.
Well, I'm just thinking curving it on the corners that you marked.
This curve.
Like to have this curve.
Oh, it probably. Well, go ahead, Ms.
Well, I'll leave it up to you, but it felt a little modern to curve it. So I will leave that to you.
I think the chamfered corner is appropriate for the construction style of the fence because it's a post and rail type fence.
And the vines will cover it anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So we had a motion for final approval as marked on the plan. Is that okay, Mr. Leroy? And a second by Commissioner Winnick. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next time, bring 3 plans.
Yeah.
And we're keeping that, Susan. We marked it. As noted, correct. I'm just going to do that for you to get this thing going. Okay, Suding is stepping down on the next 2 items, item number 3 and 4. Have a nice afternoon.
It is.
Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Brian Cornell, and Todd Eliason is with me, sitting back there.
The same thing?
No, different. That's the next project. Yeah, this is what I submitted. You all have been looking at this site with an entirely different project recently, I understand. And you may regret this, but I'm here because that project is not feasible. So the owners have decided that they need to keep this building in place for probably at least another 20 to 30 years. So, you know, and I forgot I was going to bring my Santa Barbara architecture book where this is in. This was 1987, as I'm sure you all know. Kruger Benson Ziemer design. It's actually in, David put it in the Santa Barbara architecture book. And this is, of course, its condition today. And we have, you know, the fascia is like that. So, how do you keep this for another 20 years and deal with what are some of the problems with it? And in reviewing the building with the owner, probably the primary issue that is here right now is the mechanical system and the existing windows. They are actually single-pane windows that are fixed between these glulam mullions, fins, whatever they are, and are obviously very narrow. So the building is extremely inefficient. And I was asked to look at this from the standpoint of, okay, what could you do? Now, obviously, you know, I understand the guidelines, but it seems to me, and what I have got sketched here, is that a simplification of this building to make it more harmonious and at the same time more energy efficient would do it and all of us a lot of good. So what I'm proposing is simply to remove, as I show on this, actually it's right here on this section, simply removing that deep fascia, which right now comes down like this, and put a beautiful oversized copper gutter around the perimeter. Right now it has internal gutters which are leaking, and let that be the leading edge of this with a lovely wood fascia, and then or eave, and then to create just beautiful simple pattern of mullions that end up being approximately, based on the structural module, about 4 feet or so on center. These structural modules actually vary. These two are the same, but these are different. And in fact, in this image, you can see the fins are not structural, but there is a structural column. So to go with a brown wood-colored window system that would have this lower transom section or lower base section, and accept the fact that this building fundamentally is a concrete and wood building and just really isn't able to be Hispanicated in the way that we might want to. And at the same time then, re-landscape it, and secondary to this is the proposal to fix the parking lot. As you also probably know, the existing parking lot was built for a drive-through teller for this bank, so it's very inefficient. We have a 16-space parking lot in this driveway that goes around. So what we looked at was doing a rational one-way flow, which creates these large planters off of Ken and Perdido, which will facilitate large planting, gives us additional planting pockets here, gets rid of that throughway, Right now, the idea, and I don't have any drawings of what this would be, but to put a simple trash enclosure here off of Chapala so the trash trucks don't have to come into this arrangement, and clean it up. Now, I believe, I'll just complete this, I think that, the issue of the guidelines and whatnot, I'm sure will be a discussion you all will have related to this, but I think when you read the guidelines, really what it is all about is compatibility. And to me, it's about making this building as harmonious as it can be. And to me, simplifying it, but accepting what it was, how it was conceived initially is the best way to do it. And the premium that we get, frankly, is to make this building much more energy efficient through the glazing system and the new mechanical system that would be designed as a result of the choice of this new glazing system.
Thank you. I don't see anyone in the audience. Oh, okay. Hiding behind Brian here. Mr. DeForest.
No. Just ready to jump on Brian.
No. I don't know. Because he's done a very good job of.
Thank you.
Have a seat, Calvin.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Mr. Cornell has always done a very good job here of making this building look much better. I've always hated it from the beginning, from when it was first conceived, and I guess it was conceived before the district was conceived.
Yeah, did I say 87? It was a 77.
You did say 87.
Yeah, right, yes, I thought that was so, the question is, is there any way, and I know Mr. Cadell is very adept to bring this building a little more into the EPP guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, back to the commission for questions. I have one. Your sketch does not show any equipment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't clear that up. I would remove that parapet. This is an exceedingly deep mechanical well, and it's unnecessary. And the mechanical equipment we're looking at would be smaller, and there'd be no issue as far as seeing it. So to me, that helps also to just, simplify that.
Okay, any questions? Mr. Drury? Ms. Boucher? Not now. Ms. Murray?
Yes. Okay. So these things, are you retaining any of this, or are these new?
I'm
these
only.
fins,
No, I would
only
remove.
removing.
I would remove all the fins. These
and then-
heavier lines you see are the actual structural columns. They would remain, and then we'd put in the glazing system between those. Now, I also should mention that I've shown the notion that we would reglaze the first floor, and that is the intent, but we probably will have to phase the project, just so you know. If this is acceptable to you, we would probably first get a permit to remove that upper parapet, clean up the eave, put in these upper windows, and then once the tenancy downstairs is resolved, we would want to do the same window system down, because it's the same problem as far as its energy leakage. And I should mention, and this is unknown at this time, but we may look to some enclosure of this deep recess without losing that sort of open corner, but that is, at this point, unresolved. So, and the parking lot, of course, would be a second, that would really be the second phase, because of Public Works and coming back to you with a landscape plan and all of that, and then the third phase would probably be finalizing the lower portion. Well, it's going to, I'm trying to keep it.
Mr. LaVoy?
The fascia.
Brian, for once you're going to be very happy with what I have to say. Are you aware that this is a structure of merit? It was identified as a rare example of brutalist Third Bay region style with Spanish influence by Dr. Gebhardt, who's sitting here. Therefore, and we did it at that point some 20 years ago or more, to allow the construction of the elevator in the back in a style consistent with the existing style so that it did not have to be Hispanicated. So therefore, since it is a structure of merit, anything you do to this building has to be consistent with its current style.
Yeah, what is the question? It's fine.
Mr. Winnick.
Okay, mine's not as colorful as that. My question really is about, I always find the building to be really dark, and the proposal of getting rid of the fins, I think, will help lighten it, also getting rid of that soffit. The next question I have is really about the glazing itself. You've told us about the mullion system, and I guess it'll be a bronzish aluminum system. I'm kind of curious what the glazing itself will be.
Well, I would look to you to your thoughts. I mean, I wasn't going to propose any tinting or anything like that, but we are definitely looking at various levels of insulated glass, relative to what is practical for installation. So whether this is, triple glazing or double glazing, we don't know for sure, but I would think that it would be a very simple, clear, or very lightly tinted greenish sort of a glass.
Okay. It's not the comment period, but I'll answer. I mean, you said, well, you're looking for an indication. I think what you just described is what I would support. Thank you.
Ms. Arias?
I don't have any questions.
All right, we'll move into comments. Ms. Arias?
Oh. I'm delighted.
I have always liked this building. I was not very enthusiastic about what was proposed for this location. And I'm delighted that it's staying, and I think Mr. Cornell has used a great deal of sensitivity, and he's probably going to record this and keep record of myself.
Yeah. Judy's being nice. That's what I just wrote.
No, I really, and I think the changing in the parking lot is excellent. You're getting in some landscaping. It's a plus, and I'm very glad to see that the owners have decided to do this.
Thank you. Mr. Winnick?
I don't have that much to add other than I sort of echo it. I think everything that's been proposed is sensitive and headed in the right direction. Hearing about the possibility that for some period of time the glazing would be different at the upper level versus down below and the window systems, I just would like to encourage that it be done as expediently as possible down below as well. So I think the consistency of the building would benefit. I'd like to see that follow through. Thank you.
Commissioner Lavoie?
Since it is only a structure of merit. Susan went upstairs to double check. That the existing building should be photographed before any changes are made to it, with black and white photographs is normally required to document historic buildings. And I sort of wish that some of the flavor of the existing building be retained, and only to the extent that where you have structural columns, that those be expressed as glulam fins. Not everywhere where they were before, but just where you have a thicker structural column.
So you're suggesting, so basically go ahead and build that out.
Build that out.
With one of the fins.
Yes.
Reuse one of the fins.
Yeah.
That's a,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Murray?
My recollection is that when the last project came through, or prior to the last project, there was a study done. There was a structure report done to assess the building. And they found it to be really not significant.
Well,
It was and it wasn't.
Staff
yeah.
made the determination.
Yeah, right. So, and as the commissioner who did not support the last project, I'm really glad for this because I'm always for adaptive reuse, and to me this is a really good way to do adaptive reuse. I do agree with all the comments, especially the retaining some of the fins, just so that you keep that a sense of the old building. Because I think the fins were the only redeeming parts of, the brutalist, at least this particular brutalist building. So, but those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Boucher?
I don't have a microphone, but...
You do now.
Oh, okay. Well, it's very...
Speak up.
It's very important that I be heard, okay?
Of course.
I think Brian's done something very nice here. This is quiet. Okay, it's subdued, and I think it's a good way to go with this building. I think it fits in the area nicely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Drury.
Well, considering that the building, especially in this photograph with the caution light on, crossing Canaprio, reminds me of the parking structure at the Bowling Congress in Reno. And we're going to something that's been Hispanified, but very gently so, and a much lighter, airier look. I think this is an absolutely, it's going to complete the corner from Nordstrom's to this building to Sambo's to the telephone building as one of the architectural gems as a street corner in Santa Barbara.
Thank you.
Could I just add that I think it's going to be a lot more pleasant to work in.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And I do, if I may add, I appreciate all the comments, but I do think when we get, the next step is the landscaping, and I think that's going to be a huge piece of bringing it all together, making it work.
Well, to review the comments, everyone seems to be very happy. The adaptive reuse is very important, and I would hope that the glulam mullions that come off the building can be reused in some
absolutely.
way.
Absolutely.
They're not.
They're
I'm
redwood.
sure they're in good condition.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They're redwood.
That's really important.
So absolutely.
Susan.
Chair, I just went and dug out the last historic structures report that was prepared for this parcel, because when Mr. Lavoie made the comment that it was a structure of merit, I don't have that as, usually I include that in the project description, and I get that from parcel tags. There was no parcel tag, so I went and pulled the last structures report, and I don't believe it is historic. The building is not an exemplary example of a particular architectural style, but is instead an awkward melding of the contemporary Spanish tradition and brutalist styles, is what the report says.
Mr. Chair, I was referring to a prior report when Dr. Gebhardt was alive, when the elevator was...
Exactly, which was, that was like
Yeah.
late 80s, early 90s.
I
Yeah.
clearly remember that discussion because I was appalled.
Yeah.
At all.
Because that was done in concrete.
It was
It was done in poured concrete. Mm-hmm.
So it's not,
94.
so what I'm,
94?
Yeah.
Could you look, we probably need to table this until we get that determination, but could you go back as far as 84?
94.
94?
are you on the mic?
I'm sorry. Could you go back as far as 94 and look for the permit application for the elevator addition to this building?
Because Bill, I'm guessing that it probably the board made findings at that time that essentially reflected what you said in order to justify approving the elevator.
Exactly.
But I mean, the architect needs to know, because that's what this is all about.
Yeah, I
kind of
know, but-
Fact-finding review so that he knows which direction to go for his
Well,
design.
we
changes,
need
though.
that information. That's why I say we probably need to table the item. Yeah, we do, because we can't
It's
allow
here for
this.
comments
Yeah,
only.
exactly.
Then my
See,
comment-
so my next step would be to actually go ahead and reapply to come back to you guys with more detailed,
Yes.
with an actual project.
Exactly.
And all the elevations, and so you can see it in elevation and all of that. So there probably is time to do that research
Okay.
if you're, because that shouldn't change.
But that would change my comments,
Yeah, exactly.
because then you have to Hispanicate.
Right, that's why I
This
went
thing.
out and ran this thing down, because...
If it's not
he-
a structure of merit, then you have to
No,
Hispanicate.
but
It's
why?
not-
Why is that?
It's not.
Because that's what that's how the ordinance reads.
According to this report, it's not. So,
And we accepted that report.
Well, we
That
won't know
report
until
was
we
written
get-
to allow the new building to happen.
That's right. The demolition.
I don't understand why the ordinance doesn't allow you, regardless of that, because again, what it talks about is compatibility.
I agree.
And that clearly gives you the leeway to find a building compatible with your guidelines. Seems to me, but
Could staff comment on that? Because, I mean, it sounds right to me.
what's that? I'm sorry, I was reading.
I'm sorry, Susan, Ms. Gans. Mr. Cornell said that he felt that the guidelines specify that you're looking for compatibility, that it doesn't necessarily say we have to use a Spanish detail on the building. We need detailing on this building that would be
When you-
compatible with the district.
When you make a change to a building in EPV, it needs to comply with the styles in the ordinance, which are Spanish Colonial Revival and Mission, and there's several of those. Not this building. However, if a building is of a different style, and you want to continue making changes to the building in that particular style, it must be an exemplary example of that style. And this is not an exemplary example.
It's the only example, actually.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Well, I would suggest that...
Brutal as that may sound.
well, yeah, that's fine. I can talk with staff. I mean, I feel very strongly that the ordinance clearly says that the buildings, any building that is constructed or altered must be compatible with those prescribed styles. It doesn't say that you have to replicate or duplicate or emulate. It says that it has to be compatible.
That was the problem with was that your, well, maybe it wasn't your project, the project on Upper State across from the IHOP. That building,
It was.
it was the
Originally.
Yeah, it was the
The
same.
dial is the same.
Although I would have never
It was the
matched the
same
plaster texture.
situation there, where it had to be done in an Hispanic style, or it would have had to be an exemplary example of the architectural style that it was built in, and it was not.
So my comments would be very different if I'm wrong like that or not.
Well, I think we need a two-week continuance to
Mr. Chair.
research and...
Mr. Chair?
Second.
Motion and second? Mr. Reyes?
Well, I would urge Mr. Cornell to seek some legal advice on that, because, well, ordinances can get modified and changed. Relief from ordinances can be done by going to the city council and asking for relief. It's called variances and modifications. And I think you need to look at preserving that building as near as possible appropriately.
So just to clarify, it sounds like what we have is a question of exactly what the ordinance allows us to do with this building. And I'm confident, I mean, it seems to me that I can go ahead and meet with staff and city attorney if we have to, and just make sure that you can, because I think you all would like to see this happen. So now we just have to make sure that you can allow it to happen. Okay, so, Susan, we've got work to do.
Well, common sense has to enter into this thing somewhere.
Hopefully. Yeah,
And
I agree.
that,
And I'm
to me,
glad
is
to
the-
hear that, so we'll
the
get there.
bottom line.
Okay.
All in favor of the motion for a 2-week continuance, say aye. Opposed?
Nope. I won't be here in 2 weeks. Can we do well, can you do 4 weeks, just to, so we're back on? Can we do
4-week
that?
continuance.
Okay.
Lavoy.
Thank you for your comments anyway.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Yeah.
See you in 4 weeks.
So you're going to see me in the next item. Actually. Lucky you.
Next item is also a conceptual review of 314 State Street.
Oh, you want my? Yeah, I'm a
This,
hotspot.
we can return this to Mr. Cornell.
Oh,
This is-
yeah.
You
thank
can take those home.
Brian Cornell again, Peter Lewis, building owner. So to orient you, the new REI, this of course is the wonderful building that was done by the Bofine Helping Fund, and where did that?
Thanks. So what's going on now?
So this little building was actually, it actually shows up in this photo that was done right after the earthquake. So you can see it actually was a little arcade building similar to this building, 318 State Street. This is basically what the facade-omy, if you will, that was done at the time of the freeway work. And, you know, as you know, in fact, this was really the beginning of Alex Cole's career, was the saving of this facade. And so you actually can see in the plan how State Street kind of curved to allow that facade to remain. But this little storefront wasn't so lucky, and it got cut back. And so that was the remodel of that face which was done. And this is just another little shot so you can see it's really funky back in here. Because of a drainage and whatnot, it kind of drops down to this front door. Now, of course, at the end of the day, the real problem with this building is finding a tenant who wants to use it, because it's such a dead end from the parking lot across the street to the front door. And so the REI, the parking lot that we did as part of REI, in fact, facilitates better access to this building. But right now, this is, of course, this is earlier, before the REI remodel, and this is post-REI remodel. That little building is tucked back in here, and Peter, in talking to numerous tenants, they want to be able to get their front door so that it's more accessible to that parking lot. So the simple idea here is really to, if you'll look at my sketches, and this photo actually corresponds with this little sketch right here, and then these two photos correspond with these two sketches. So the simple idea is to do an addition of this building which just is rational to the property line and follows to get it forward so that there is some visibility from the parking lot. And then to just simplify, to take that little tower off and to rehab the arched windows and to clean up what is now this sort of funny stepping painted parapet condition which runs along here, and just have one simple step and then have it come around and be rational. And then, as this little sketch shows, we would go ahead and clean up the windows. I mean, this would be a new window, but there's also windows along here and would be cleaned up, so there's just a simple window system along that freeway side. So that's the concept. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we might be able to save it and Yeah, it'd be great for a little Buddha if it was on the
A little Buddha, very cute.
A little shrine.
No, it's better in the air. It's levitating.
Yeah, it's true.
Does staff have any comments regarding this project?
This is 324.
314.
Sorry. I've checked the record and we don't believe it's historic based on prior evaluations.
Thank you.
Public comment.
Public comment?
Don't feel obliged. We're not begging. I mean, seriously.
I agree, Kellum DeForest, I agree the tower could go, and I just want to know why it was put there in the first place. What, did it serve any function? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, questions? Anybody have any questions? Ms. Murray?
Yeah, are there any equipment back there? I mean, is the tower hiding something or any, okay.
And when we come back, we probably will have new mechanical equipment that we'll have to deal with when we come back to you, should you find this acceptable or something we could move forward, yeah.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Mr. Drury?
Just in the sketches, the planning...
But having you're going to sort of take the tower out and make it look more like what exists next to it? Kind of the idea?
Well, the idea really is, as you can see here, there's a reveal between this face and the entrance. So we'd keep the entrance. We would end up reworking that entrance because one of the things that we want to try and do is to address this really uncomfortable step the way it slopes down to the front door. So Peter and I have discussed that we actually may end up raising this entire floor something like 6 inches. The flood zone does come through here, so we may have to deal with that as well. So we would just maintain that step in the facade, and then, as I said, just rehab those arched windows and simplify that parapet, and then step it down as I show in sort of a rational location past that last arched window.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Winnick.
I'm curious about looking at that same sketch, the one that's identified as A, perspective across 101 freeway. It just shows that the arches are at a different height on the proposed remodeled section of the building versus what's adjacent to it. So I'm just curious what the thinking is behind the heights of the arches.
So you're saying that this height is they're lower than those windows? Is that-
I'm upside down backwards, so I'm not sure. But yeah,
Considerable.
Is that-
Did the ones
yeah.
facing the freeway appear to be lower than the ones facing State Street?
correct.
Is it just perspective?
It
that we're saying?
probably is just the renderer who,
artist
yeah,
license.
maybe wasn't paying attention. But I think what are those arches at now? Do you remember, Peter?
The arch is now at about 10 and a half
The
feet.
top of the arch.
Top of the arch is
Yeah.
about 10 and a half feet.
So we would make sure there's an appropriate relationship between those two.
They're within about 6 inches right now. The entryway might be slightly different than the freeway.
Well, I'm not.
But you're talking about this arch, this existing one in front, or are we talking about these
No,
windows
the
in?
distance, this window height is way up here.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's just my
And
mistake.
it's 6 feet
Yeah,
difference,
I
roughly.
think that's just a...
Okay. Just
We'd want to make sure they had an appropriate relationship.
great. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Comments? Good idea. I think it's supportable.
Is there a motion? It's here for comments only, but
It's fine.
want a continuance?
With the
He needs
comment,
to
it's
submit a-
supportable. Yeah.
You need to turn around and submit a formal project.
Fine,
This is
okay.
just-
Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
Continue for 4 weeks?
No, we
she's-
wouldn't continue it. We would just...
Submit.
He'll submit to get back on, and
It's
it'll
over.
be a normal.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, is there a motion for adjournment?
Wow.
Wait.